Hello, my name is Jacqueline Michelle Norris, and this presentation, Evaluating Formal and Informal Culturally Responsive and Accessible Assessments, is a training video that may be used for a staff in-service day at any time throughout the year. This in-service will help our faculty have a better understanding of how to use research to evaluate the quality of formative and summative assessments of learning, implement formal and informal culturally responsive and accessible assessments of student learning, interpret data from formative and summative assessments for use in educational planning, and cultivate the capacity to improve instruction based on analysis of assessment data. There are 4 major sections to this presentation: a reference page for your further research, and a specially inspired end page. Section 1, Synthesize Resources. Please take a moment to read this in your head as I read it aloud. Synthesize. To take what you know, your schema, and put it together with new knowledge in order to reevaluate your thinking. This is a crucial step for students. Schema is how people organize long-term memories and what they bring to the table. When you mix schema with new information, you are helping students encode new information in the brain. On a cultural side note, I'd like to tell you a story. Do you see those dolls on the corner of this page? They are called matryoshka. A Russian student of mine shared her cultural memory after she saw me put this same slide up in front of the class. Mrs. Norris, the Matryoshka doll appeared around 125 years ago, and it was inspired by a souvenir brought back from Japan to Russia. The Fukurama sage, painted on the Japanese souvenir, had 5 progressively smaller sages inside. The Russian name, Matryoshka, comes from the Latin word mater, meaning mother. The production of Matryoshka began at the Moscow toy factory. First Matryoshkas consisted of 8 figures cleverly nested inside one another, alternating girls and boys. Each figure was different from the next, and the last one was a tiny figure of a swaddled baby, representing the entire family with children of different ages. I love that story. Here you see Japanese sages and Russian mothers representing their cultural importance of the patriarchy and the matriarchy. When students are able to share their cultural experiences and understandings and link it to new information, that's when the brain fires more synapses, dendrites grow, the brain becomes more dense, and learning occurs. So let's begin. To synthesize resources, we have the first article called Assessment and Evaluation in Education. The article describes the differences between the terms assessment and evaluation. And I enjoyed the quote, "Assessment is a process and evaluation is a product," because it is simplified and it simplified the whole article without confusion. The second article, called Distinctions Between Assessment and Evaluation. So this article conveyed the idea that assessment is a process used to improve a performance or outcome and provides insights or areas for possible improvement. Evaluation is a process used to determine the quality of a performance or outcome and to make decisions based on the quality, as well as letting the educators know if the standard has been met. Both processes may be summative and formative. Article 3, Working Towards Culturally Responsive Assessment Practices, discusses the reasons why educators assess students and relates ways to include students and parents to create a safe learning environment where students feel comfortable. The author then goes on to say how important it is to share your best practices, and the way to become more responsive as a teacher is the need for constant dialogue around assessments. This allows us to learn from each other and help our students grow. The fourth article, called Keeping Students at the Center with Culturally Relevant Performance Assessments. The author of this article had a very cutting quote about letting students make connections between their learning and their daily world, and this experience is best for learning and is an asset to the classroom. Remember the Matryoshka doll? The fifth article, called The Challenges of Measuring Well-Being in School, is an article from Canada that shares that its ministerial priority is evaluating and assessing student well-being. The author discusses the challenges of measuring well-being and offers consideration for promoting well-being in its schools. Evaluating and assessing student well-being is a current ministerial priority with implications for teachers' work in Ontario. There's a broad move to address physical, emotional, psychological, and sociocultural well-being in Ontario school. The review discusses the challenges of measuring well-being, the relationship between teacher and student well-being, and offers considerations for promoting the well-being in Ontario schools. The sixth article, Ongoing Quest for Culturally Responsive Assessment for Indigenous Students in the U.S., discusses obstacles to culturally responsive assessment for Indigenous students. Examples of efforts to improve assessment are provided. The concept of culturally valid assessment is explored, and recommendations for going forward constructively are scattered throughout the paper. Section 2. Evaluate and propose. To begin my evaluation, each of our schools coordinates extracurricular activities that reflect the needs and interests of the students. For example, the high school provides volunteer opportunities, as these are important in future college applications. The resources in our district include: our district is 1-to-1, meaning every student has a Chromebook. Each site has a Wi-Fi, and those students without Wi-Fi at home are provided with temporary hotspots. The services that we provide at each of our sites for students and families who qualify for free and reduced lunch will also receive a bag of food over the weekend and on holidays. My proposals for academia include the need to make sure that teachers, paraprofessionals, administrators, and substitute teachers receive training, time to implement that training to use digital literacy. Even though each school is required to implement digital tools, not all teachers implement with the same fidelity. So this training would be very important. Non-academic proposals. So despite the fact that there are clubs available after school, it might be advantageous to implement a soft skills class. It would be offered at all sites that teach age-appropriate skills from tying shoes to tying the knot. All kidding aside, these non-academic skills may provide ideas on how to succeed with cultivating family values. It might also serve to include our unwed pregnant teens and our married teenagers. The services that I would like to propose. So what if schools implemented support services to strengthen what students learn in the classroom and how that translates to future workforce in a series of community sponsors hands-on days? My idea is that community members would be guest speakers and work with teachers to provide opportunities for students to work to better the community by piggybacking onto concepts learned in the classroom. I envision a series of projects and annual projects as opposed to a one and done. Section 3. District-specific answers. Our district currently uses the following assessments from kindergarten through high school: MAP tests, SBAC tests, end of course exams, PSAT, ACT, and HiSET, or high school equivalency tests. Each classroom additionally uses pre-made, teacher-created, or textbook-created summative and formative assessments. Requirements in our district are changing, and as far as the implementation of common formative assessments across departments. The autonomy for teaching the content is present, but the requirements of common formative tests are foreshadowing standards-based grading. There are some gaps, including the cycle of data analysis by staff, implementation of an intervention plan, time to employ interventions, a reconvening to review the implementation, and chances to revise the plan. This continuous cycle of evaluation and improvement, revision, and reimplementation is crucial to the success of the student body. Current thoughts regarding SAT versus ACT and their cultural responsiveness include: both the ACT and SAT have undergone efforts to minimize cultural bias and increase fairness for all test takers. However, some research suggests that the ACT may be more culturally responsive than the SAT, particularly for non-native English speakers and students from diverse cultural backgrounds. Section 4. Final thoughts. Perhaps we may all rally around some central goals, as it may help focus us. Success of children and the opportunity for success from each and every child could be the point that we rally around. We have to recognize that we're doing some things well and some things we can modify. We want to sharpen the weaknesses and we want to keep the practices that are strengths. The references for this paper include these 6. My special thank you, the end page. I just want to thank you for listening and participating in this in-service training. Special thanks to my student who introduced me to the adorableness of Pusheen the cat and how to bring the adorableness to a new digital level by adding a GIF to presentations. My student also let me know that cats are a common pet worldwide, and many cultures consider cats to be affectionate and low maintenance. Again, thank you for your time today.